Welcome in, race fans. This edition of Through the Gears presented by Front Stretch. I'm your host, Tino, and I can't wait to get back into the NASCAR racing action for this weekend, the NASCAR betting action for this weekend, and most importantly, the NASCAR winning action for this weekend as we get set to go to Las Vegas. Viva Las Vegas, viva la NASCAR. I'm super excited to talk about that and the current NASCAR playoff picture. I love where things are looking at from that standpoint. We got some championship picks. We have winners to win the race outright for this weekend, of course, and a bunch of other stuff in between. So let's go right into it. But before we do just that, got to give a special shout out to the people who commented on the last video. Appreciate all the likes, comments, supports, shares. It all means the world to me. So shout out to Marcus, shout out to Tantan, and shout out to Crystal Sparkle. Appreciate all you guys commenting there. Be sure to leave a comment on this video if you want to be shouted out in the next one. And without further ado, let's go through the gears. Let's get right into the ROVAL recap, as that was a very exciting race, I thought, in terms of the playoff picture and how everything unfolded at Charlotte. We saw Kyle Larson dominate another race in the NASCAR playoffs, and I feel like that's really huge for us to take a look at in this one as well, especially as we do some prep for Vegas, which we'll get into the next segment. But Kyle Larson seems to still be the best driver in the field right now. Even when they're not necessarily there in terms of speed at times, they can still turn it on better than anyone else and dominate races in a fashion that really no one else has done this season as much as Kyle Larson and that 5 team. Now, from a betting standpoint, we knew what was going to happen from the strategy, and we were able to really figure out which drivers were going to be fast, which drivers were going to be aggressive, which drivers were going to win. I didn't personally have Kyle Larson on my card to win that race outright, but I hope you guys did, because when we talked about the 3 drivers that were going to be aggressive, that were in the NASCAR playoffs to try to win this race, well, they finished 1, 2, 3. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, and William Byron being all in the mix up front there at the end. We had Bell and Byron, but I do like the fact that we were there in terms of understanding the strategy that was going to play out, especially with that round of the playoffs that was filled with non-NASCAR playoff drivers winning races there. Now, we go to the round of 8, and I think the biggest storyline coming out of the ROVAL is not the fact that Kyle Larson dominated, really not the fact that it's, 3 races until the championship. I think to me, it's the fact that Joey Logano is the lucky driver heading to Vegas this weekend, because of the fact that he was not in the round of 8 originally until Alex Bowman gets disqualified from that race at Charlotte, the ROVAL, and then it puts Joey Logano into this playoff picture. There is no driver out there in this current round of 8 that has the type of experience being in this position like Joey Logano does. And the stats can speak for themselves. He's got 2 championships. That's the most out of the current playoff driver field in this round of 8. I think that's the most important thing. Let's take a look, because I think this is the best round of 8 we have ever seen. Kyle Larson, champion. Christopher Bell, multiple championship 4-time driver, being in that position. Tyler Reddick, regular season champion. William Byron, one of the hottest drivers in the sport right now. Daytona 500 winner, 6 wins last season. Ryan Blaney, defending champion. Denny Hamlin, almost champion. Chase Elliott, champion. Joey Logano, 2-time champion. And I think that's the thing when we go into Vegas for this weekend's race, understanding that any of these 8 drivers can win and lock themselves into the championship 4. So who's it going to be? As we do some prep for Vegas this weekend, one driver that stands out to me the most is Kyle Larson. Let's stick with him right now, because he is the current points leader at plus 33. That to me means less pressure for that 5 car, more aggressiveness that they're able to use in order to get the win, in which Kyle Larson already is, if not the most aggressive driver in the field, one of the most. And I think that's huge for them heading into these races, because knowing they have plus 33 points above the cut line, they know that if they do get into, an accident, a wreck, a mistake happens on pit road, whatever the case may be, we've seen that happen before with Kyle Larson, where tires just fall off the car. I think they're going to be in a great spot. Now, I do think they're going to need to potentially win a race in this round, but I don't necessarily think that as much as other drivers that will be the case with that plus 33. I think Kyle Larson is in the best position, obviously by the point standings wise, but also just understanding these type of tracks that we're going to. He's won at Martinsville, which is the final race before the championship. He's won at Miami, one of his best tracks. And then he's obviously won at Vegas, like we mentioned as well. That's big too, because he's won at Vegas this past season, earlier in the spring, and last year he won this exact race. I was at that race live in person, and seeing Kyle Larson just go out and dominate was pretty special. I actually talked to him before the race and after in terms of what he thought about his odds to win the championship. He was the favorite before the race. He said he doesn't necessarily feel like the favorite last season, and then after the race he kind of followed it up by saying just because they did win and have that advantage, there's still going to be drivers out there like William Byron and Ryan Blaney who've impressed him to go out and have to beat there in that one. So hey, if that was his thought process last year, I can imagine it's the same going into this round of 8 this season. Now, we mentioned Christopher Bell and William Byron. Well, those are two of the best drivers at this racetrack. Speaking of Kyle Larson, let's talk about his teammate in William Byron. Willie B has been sneaky fast at this racetrack, and he is due for a victory at Las Vegas. His car early in the spring race that we mentioned, Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick was up there as well. We'll talk about him, but in the spring, it was really a Kyle Larson type of race. Could Reddick catch him? It looked like he could have and potentially gone toe-to-toe if it wasn't for pit road issues for that 45 team. But I'm talking about those two drivers because William Byron was better than both of them at the start of the race. If it wasn't for a big, giant garbage bag of debris hanging over the front grille of the 24 car, he may have gone on to have a Larson type of domination race based off of how fast he and his car were looking early in the stages of that race in the spring at Las Vegas. And he was also really strong here last fall as well, which is the two races we're going to use to compare the race this weekend because of the fall conditions, but also this racetrack specifically with it being an intermediate 1.5 mile racetrack. The Hendrick cars have dominated on that type of style, and it most definitely Kyle Larson and William Byron specifically. Let's get to some Toyota drivers in this one. Christopher Bell, he's a driver that I've been having my eye on all throughout these playoffs. To me, right now, although Kyle Larson is the championship favorite, and for good reason, I think you can put C. Bell right there next to him with how he specifically performed in the racetracks at this round. We're talking about Las Vegas. He finished second there in this race last year. He would have had a stronger run in this race in the spring had he not been for tire issues. He was driving up through the field there. Looked like he had a car top 5, top 3, maybe could have contended with Kyle Larson and Tyler Reddick, William Byron, like we mentioned as well, but we didn't get to see that happen. Now, to me, Christopher Bell is one of these drivers where he's sneaky. He's going to be consistent all throughout the race and all throughout these rounds. He won at Miami last year. He's won at Martinsville before. Could Vegas be the round of 8 victory that Christopher Bell also solidifies this season? I'm saying yes, and I'm also saying his odds are really strong. Stick around for the odds breakdown in the next segment. We'll break that down a little bit more. His Toyota teammate, Tyler Reddick, same type of thought process there with Tyler Reddick. If it wasn't for pit road miscues there, Tyler Reddick could have beat Kyle Larson at this racetrack and this race in the spring. I really do believe that. He was having such a strong run, and if it wasn't for the pit road, the pit crew really letting him down a little bit there and costing him some spots, he could have came out strong, and I think he could have beat Kyle Larson in that head-to-head battle. I think Tyler Reddick, especially at these intermediates, has been really fast. If we look at Michigan like a comp track, he won there. So that's something that we're going to consider heading into the odds breakdown and who we may bet on for this outright win. Now, we talked about Chevys, we talked about Toyotas. One Ford driver I have to mention, Joey Logano. We'll get to his odds in a second, but he was in the same position to win this race, to get to the championship 2 years ago in 2022, and he was an underdog at that point as well. High value play. He was able to get that race win there, and I think we may see the same thing happen this weekend. Let's take a look at the odds breakdown for Las Vegas Motor Speedway as we head to the track this weekend. Which drivers stand out the most in terms of value, and who's the favorite coming into this one? Well, that's no question of Kyle Larson at plus 300 for a driver to win a NASCAR race. I can never take that bet. And here's why. the amount of things that can go wrong in a NASCAR race. Let's just list off the things that pop into my head right now. You have running out of fuel, you have being in a wreck, you have flat tires, which Kyle Larson has gotten at Kansas specifically, another intermediate track where he's awesome at. Got a flat tire, hit the wall, no good. Engine malfunction, garbage bag size debris going over your nose or grill, just like William Byron had. The list can go on and on. Pit road issues, being sick. My whole point is at plus 300 for a driver to win a NASCAR race, with understanding how many different factors have to come into play to win, the value, the odds, the price is not there for me. And I don't think I'll ever take a number that low in a race like this. For a championship race, when 4 drivers can go out and be the strongest of the field, most likely. Obviously, last year we saw Ross Chastain win it, but Ryan Blaney was right there in second, and the final 4 guys are battling all day long. My point of that is, though, that is an instance or a situation where that price would make sense for, and we see that. Plus 300, plus 200, plus 150 for the championship race. But we're talking about a round of 8 race. I know Kyle Larson has won at Las Vegas the last 2 times and won last weekend in dominating fashion. Well, how about if I told you no driver has won back-to-back races so far this season? So that's just another thing that adds to it for me. My other thing is, if you really want to bet on Kyle Larson, if you really do think he's going to go out and have a strong run and win this race, I do agree with you, and this would be my suggestion for anyone that wants to try to capitalize on Kyle Larson winning this race outright. If you want to do that, potentially look for a prop of the Chevy race winning manufacturer to be the race winner. And my point with that is you can get that at plus money, plus 100, plus 150, anywhere in that range probably is where that prop is at right now on certain sports books. Well, if you're getting that price for probably 6 to 10 drivers capable of winning in the field, all Hendrick Motorsports guys. You got Kyle Busch in there who could pull off an upset, and so on. The list goes on. Trackhouse as well. Ross Chastain's been strong at this track. To me, that's just way more worth it than seeing a price like that for one specific driver. Let's move on down the list now, though. William Byron sits in second at plus 850. That's just a good example of seeing a driver that's the favorite at plus 300 to next level at plus 850. Talked about Willie B in the prep segment there. Love his odds right now and also love his chances to go out and get the win. Christopher Bell plus 950. Tyler Reddick, same value. We talked about those 2 Toyotas. Denny Hamlin's plus 1,000. That's the only one to me where you can maybe see value there for Hamlin, but he's not the best at qualifying. So maybe I'd hold off on that one there. Maybe we can even get it for a little bit, longer bit of a price there or value-wise. But I also just don't think Denny is the best Toyota in the field heading into this one. I honestly think we see Reddick, we see obviously Bell, like we mentioned, but Ty Gibbs is fast. MTJ, I don't think he's really having the amount of speed, so I won't put him over Denny. But Bubba Wallace has been strong at this racetrack too. We talk about those other drivers that could be in the mix for a non-playoff driver. I think he can honestly outperform the 11 car in this one based on what we've seen thus far in the playoffs. Let's see if the 11 car can really turn things on going into this weekend. Now, sticking with playoff drivers, Ryan Blaney plus 1,400. Joey Logano plus 1,600. Love this situation for Joey. That was around the same price for Joey 2 years ago at this track when he won, like I was talking about earlier on in the show. Same situation, really, it seems like, for the 22 team in the sense of being an underdog in this race and really having a chance to go out and surprise a lot of people, except us, because we're thinking about Joey Logano all week long. Chase Elliott plus 1,600 as well. I like the value there for Chase. I think that's going to be a little underrated at first this weekend heading into it, but I think the closing line value for a driver like Chase Elliott could be there if he gets a strong qualifying run. The only thing is he's going to have to beat Kyle Larson and William Byron, and I don't think right now, from what I've seen, I don't think that's going to happen for Chase. I expect him to go out and have a strong top 5 run because he's consistent. He always gets top 10s. That's what put him in contention for the regular season championship. But right now, I don't think Chase Elliott has what it takes. We'll see after he goes out and tries to perform at his best at Las Vegas. Kyle Busch, the first non-playoff driver, up now plus 2,000. Truex, the same price there. Chastain as well. Ty Gibbs plus 2,400. Bowman plus 3,100. he might be pissed off. He may try to win a race after getting disqualified, but ultimately, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to be doing anything in this one. Now, I hope that doesn't come back to bite me. No shade at Alex Bowman, but I had him for a top 10 last weekend at the Roval, and he didn't perform well at all there. So that really didn't make me happy with the 48 car there in that one. Bubba Wallace plus 3,300. Bubba's been strong at this track. Top 10s, top 5s here at Vegas. I think he could have a strong run again. Chris Buescher plus 3,500. And then we see the plus 100-to-1 drivers like Austin Cindric, Chase Briscoe, and so on. So those are your playoff drivers. I think the playoff drivers are going to step up the most in terms of how it looks like right now on the sports books. They're all up towards the front of the field, and that to me makes sense heading into this one. It's the moment you've all been waiting for, the outright winner segment. Who are we picking to win this race outright, and who can provide us with the best value in order to profit big at Las Vegas? It's all about getting lucky. It's all about earning it, though. For me personally, I feel like it's been time for us to get back to victory lane. We're due for a win. And what better place than Viva La NASCAR, Viva Las Vegas? First up, you shouldn't be surprised by this pick at all if you hadn't tuned into the whole show. It's William Byron at plus 850. This is a number. Also, most of these drivers, if you're tuning in now, whenever this show comes out, be sure to bet them early in the week rather than after practice and qualifying. If you want to wait for some reassurance, totally fine. But a lot of these guys, William Byron specifically, and my next few picks to win this race outright, all have closing line value, especially once we see them be strong in practice and qualifying there. William, another driver that I'm talking about too, Christopher Bell at plus 950 to win this race on FanDuel. To me, I love those odds there because he likes to win the pole at tracks. He has a lot of poles this season, and he has a 3.8 starting position, I believe, on intermediate. So to me, I feel like with that standpoint there of his recent start in terms of being really fast, unloading and everything like that, I need him to obviously have the full speed throughout the race, but starting up front is what's going to matter most, especially when we're betting on these guys in terms of trying to find the most value. So William Byron's 1, Christopher Bell is 2, and then we got to go with Tyler Reddick. With how fast he was in terms of trying to beat Kyle Larson in a 1v1 almost, it seemed like in this race in the spring. To me, at this track, I think it's going to fit Tyler Reddick's driving style. He could punch his ticket to the championship 4 because of how fast they've been on the style of racetrack and how much speed he's able to get off the corners and everything like that. Next up, it's going to be the 22 of Joey Logano. Right now, I feel like there's so much momentum with that team just by getting put back into the playoffs in the round of 8. Joey Logano is an elite driver, has the most championships in the field right now in the remaining round of 8 here. And I feel like that experience can propel the team from an underdog to a potential championship favorite. He's 12-1 right now to win the championship. I like those odds as well. So right now, I think that's a moment you need to capitalize on if you think Joey Logano is going to win this race. He's 16-1 to do so, 12-1 to win the championship. And I feel like that makes a lot of sense to me to bet on something like a championship winner, because if he wins this race, he's the first driver locked into the championship 4. Some prop bets in this one. The market that I normally like the most in the top 10s is a little bit skewed, and it makes sense, right? Because of the drivers that are in the round of 8 are getting a little bit of a boost there in terms of their odds, and the price is not being at plus money, which sometimes we'll see for some of those drivers within this round of 8. But with it being such a elite group, we're not finding that much value in the top 10 market. But that's okay, because there's 8 drivers in the round of 8. Not all of them are going to finish inside the top 10. And there are some drivers outside that who are non-playoff drivers. So to me, how can we find value there? Well, like I said, bet non-playoff drivers to get a top 10. Alex Bowman's one of them, plus 115. I don't necessarily love this play, but if you think he's going to have some revenge or looking for some redemption after being disqualified from last week, that could be a play for you there, plus money for Alex Bowman. Bubba Wallace is one that I will play at plus 115. I talked about him being strong at this track, and I think he will continue to do so here in terms of finishing inside the top 10. He did so last weekend at the Roval. That was impressive to me, and I feel like this 23 team, with not having the pressure of the playoffs, is just performing at a high level, and that's something where the momentum can build and build for each week, and that's something that I'm going to be locked in for him with the top 10. I like Brad Keselowski for a top 10 as well, plus 115. I think that number specifically for Brad could increase. We haven't seen him be the best at qualifying this season. Same thing with Chris Buescher's at plus 140. So if you want either of those RFK drivers, I would wait until after practice and qualifying to get that number. For Bubba specifically for a top 10, I'd probably hammer that now at plus 115 early in the week. Noah Gragson at plus 460 is a good top 10 play. Earlier in the spring, he finished within the top 10 and had a strong run for that car and that team. So to me, Noah Gragson at plus 460 is a great high value top 10 play I like in this one. And that's going to be it for the top 10s. Let's move on to top 5s now here. And that'll be the only two markets I really touch on in this one. Top 5 value, William Byron at plus 100. I think that's fair if you think he's going to go out and have a strong run. I think plus money for Willie B early in the week is the only time you're going to get it for a top 5 finish. After practice, after qualifying, I believe that number will go down. Same thing can be said for Christopher Bell at plus 110, Joey Logano plus 160. These are all the drivers I expect to win. So if you want to sort of make sure you do get a win for, hey, maybe it'll finish all 4 drivers inside the top 5, increase the profit you make by that standpoint. Or if you want to sort of sense some driver could potentially beat our guys who we have on the outright winners card, that's how you can be prepared with these prop bets to make up for that potential loss in that standpoint, or the money that you're betting, right? You want to get some of it back. That's another way to do so. That's how I sort of look at it from betting in terms of how much units I put down on an outright winner. I want to make that money back so I can have more profit in the end. I think another driver that can help us do that is Kyle Busch at plus 240 for a top 5. I think Busch will have a strong run here. He finished top 3 in this race last season, and I think they want to end the season strong. He obviously wants to win. What place better to go out and have a strong run than his home track at Las Vegas? And the only other driver I'd go top 5 for in this one for high value would probably be Bubba Wallace, like I mentioned, again, for another profit, plus 450. That's good odds there if we think he's going to go out and have a strong day. I don't know about top 5, but I think the value there at plus 450 is as good as you're going to get. To round things off with my favorite play of the week, I think it's going to have to be William Byron to win this race outright. I really do like Joey Logano, but if I'm going to pick one out of the 2 or 4 drivers we have to win this race outright, it's going to be William Byron at plus 850. I love that value, especially with how fast this car was in the first Vegas race of the season this year. I think that's something some people may be forgetting with Kyle Larson obviously taking the top spot, being the favorite in this race. I expect Willie to be stronger than Larson in this one. That's going to be a hot take, but I expect that to happen. I feel like he's just going to be more prepared heading into this race because they had a lot of playoff points. They already advanced last round. They could have been thinking about Vegas when they were racing at the ROVAL, and they came out really strongly at Kansas in terms of speed. Another intermediate track. Michigan, he was fast as well. I feel like that 24 car could punch his ticket back to the championship 4. And at plus 850, that's why it's my favorite play. That'll do it for this edition of Through the Gears. Appreciate you tuning in. Comment down below who you think is going to win the race this weekend. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about anything you have for this race. If you just want to talk shop about the NASCAR racing action of the round of 8, let me know too. You can follow me at Tino, Pattigno on social media. You can hit me up on there, DM me. Feel free to ask me any NASCAR betting related questions or anything else within the field. I love to talk with you guys in the community every chance that I get. And every chance you get, be sure to tune into the Stock Car Scoop after the race on Sundays, where the Front Stretch team provides you with the best insights, info, and things they learned at the track. Maybe some inside scoops of what happened as they recap the Sunday racing action from Las Vegas this weekend. I'm super excited for this one. I love Las Vegas. I love winning as well. So Viva Las Vegas. Viva La NASCAR. Have a good one. Best of luck, everyone. And I'll see you next week as we go through the gears.